It's 2 o'clock from the Southwest Network of Radio Nigeria.
Good afternoon. Welcome to another edition of The World Today for the week. It's a Southwest Network program of Radio Nigeria by the Zulu station, comprising news and feature. In the lineup, President Tinubu directs Nigerian missions in South Africa to establish crisis unit. Court convicts former Palm Minister for money laundering. On the foreign scene, U.S. Secretary of State meets Pope Leo XVI. U.S. Secretary of State meets Pope Leo XIV. French President called for reopening of Hormuz Strait. Heart of the Matter today is on addressing cases of human trafficking. I am Remi Omololari. Reading with me this afternoon is...
Need answers the name. Thanks for joining us. You can listen to us as we live stream on www.radionigeriaibadan.gov.ng or watch us live on Facebook at Premier FM 93.5. Nigeria belongs to us all. Contribute your quota to make her great. Now the news in full. President Bola Tinubu has directed Nigerian missions in South Africa to immediately establish a crisis notifications unit for imperiled citizens. This is contained in a statement by the Minister of Foreign Affairs, Mrs. Bianca Odumegwu, noting that the directives followed a phone conversation between her and her South African counterpart, Mr. Ronald Lamola, amid worsening tensions in the southern African nation. Mrs. Odumegwu Ojukwu said Mr. Lamola expressed concern over Nigeria's evacuation plans during the call, insisting that the government could not stand by while its nationals were being harassed, humiliated, and killed extrajudicially. The minister warned that the ongoing anti-foreigner campaign in the country may be more accurately described as Afrophobia than xenophobia. The statement advises Nigerians in danger to contact South African security authorities. She also called on Mr. Lamola to ensure that South Africa's police and justice systems treated cases of extrajudicial killings of Nigerians with greater seriousness, demanding clear and immediate consequences for perpetrators.
The need for government at all levels to put structures in place to ensure effective artificial intelligence AI governance system has been brought to the fore. This was the submission of speakers at the first International Interdisciplinary Biannual Conference of the Dominican University, Ibadan, with the theme AI and the Future of Humanity. The keynote speaker, Professor Chidozie Okoye, stressed that the three pillars of artificial intelligence must be controlled to avoid absolute chaos. Professor Okoye identified governance responsibility, global equity, and data privacy and security as very critical to the future of AI technology.
If you don't develop effective governance structures for AI, that humanity will be in very deep trouble, because there will be abuse and misuse of the AI technology.
In a goodwill message, wife of the former Ondo State Governor Dr. Betty Anyanwu Akeredolu observed that women, girls and youth were marginalized in the STEM field of study, called for an inclusive AI technology and digital economy. Earlier in an address of welcome, the Vice-Chancellor, Dominican University, Professor Jacinta Okpara, said AI age was a redefining moment in human history, extending the boundaries of human capabilities.
From healthcare to education, governance to media, AI is redefining the boundaries of human capability and social organization, shaping how we think, how we work, how we communicate, and increasingly how we understand ourselves.
Professor Okpara urged participants of the conference to apply their take-home to their various fields of endeavor. Other speakers at the conference, including the Permanent Secretary, Bureau of ICT and Digital Innovation of Oyo State, Mrs. Romiha Adabanija, and a professor of anthropology and ethics, Omowumi Ogunyemi, argue that AI could never replace humans, adding that humans are interdependent and interconnected.
The Federal Radio Corporation of Nigeria, FRCN Ibadan, has reiterated its commitment to accommodating students for industrial training to boost industry-academia collaboration. The Zonal Director, FRCN Ibadan, Mr. Olufemi Fulani, made this known during a courtesy visit by a delegation from Benin University, Iwo, to the broadcasting house, FRCN Dugbe Ibadan. Mr. Fulani, who was represented by the Deputy Director Marketing, Mr. Adewale Afinjomo, said FRCN remains a national institution that belongs to us all Nigerians and is open to supporting academic institutions in training the next generation of broadcast professionals.
When you talk about experience, manpower, training, we still remain the best as far as broadcast industry is concerned in this country. You also should patronize Radio Nigeria, because when you reject them from these small stations, all of them will rush there.
Mr. Fulani reaffirmed that the station would continue to admit students from various institutions for Students' Industrial Work Experience Scheme, CIRUS, and industrial training, while urging academic institutions to reciprocate the gesture by patronizing the station through advert placements and publicity. The acting head of program, Communications Arts, Benin University, Mrs. Ayodele Olaoshebiko, said FRCN continues to take the lead in radio broadcasting in terms of content, reach, and professionalism. She emphasized the need for students to gain historical perspective in broadcasting through guided visits to the station.
I want to commend your efforts, even in the face of challenging economic fluctuations and all of that you are still standing tall. We want to acknowledge your assistance with the SciWest students over time. Let them come to Federal Radio Corporation of Nigeria to see in the beginning of broadcasts, so that when they see these things, they will understand what we are teaching about the history of media.
Mrs. Olaoshebiko maintained that Benin University would utilize the renewed partnership between FRC and Ibadan and the institution to project the activities of one of the foremost citadels of learning in the country. Present during the visit were members of the FRC and Ibadan Committee of Management and a delegation from the Mass Communication and Communication Arts Program of Benin University, which included retired Deputy Director Programs, Mr. Adedamola Tinubu.
Normalcy has returned to the University of Ibadan following emergency congress that was held by the management of the institution and the student union. Radio Nigeria correspondents observed that the students have returned to their classrooms to commence academic work, while the institution's main gate were opened for smooth entry and exit. Confirming the development, the student union president, Mr. Temidayo Adeboye, in an interview with Radio Nigeria, said the students tendered their resolution to the management during the Congress, noting that the agitation had been met by the management of the institution.
Paying necessary attention to the electrical faults that we have campus, ensuring that the national and the family strike does not affect the supply of electricity to university halls of residents on campus. And then immediate restoration of electricity last night was what we got, and lasted till this morning.
The student union president, however, said the university management had taken immediate steps to improve the living and learning conditions on campus as electricity supply was restored shortly after the protest and the clinic reopened. Mr. Adeboye also noted that the management of the institution will soon improve the use of cooking gas in 2 weeks. In 2 weeks' time to ease the burden of kerosene scarcity. The Public Relations Officer of the University of Ibadan, Mrs. Adejoke Akinpelu, expressed school management's commitment to addressing the problems on campus. Recall that protests disrupted academic activities yesterday following unavailability of water and lack of electricity supply to the students of the university.
Ogun State Governor Dapo Abiodun has announced plans to conduct a comprehensive electricity consumption audit as part of efforts to achieve stable and efficient power supply across the state. The governor made this known during an unscheduled visit to the 4-megawatt gas-fired independent power plant in Okemoson, Abeokuta. Governor Abiodun explained that the audit would help government determine actual electricity consumption, track distribution, and identify leakages as well as energy theft within the system. He noted that the move became necessary following the state's expanded authority to generate, transmit, and distribute electricity. Governor Abiodun reiterated his administration's commitment to providing reliable electricity, stressing that stable power supply remains key to attracting investment and boosting economic growth. He added that the newly established Ogun State Electricity Regulatory Commission would oversee activities in the sector as government intensifies efforts to position the state for investors with access to affordable and uninterrupted power supply.
The Federal High Court in Abuja has fixed tomorrow for hearing in the suit filed by factional African Democratic Congress ADC chairman Mr. Matthew Gombe against former Senate President David Mark and others over the leadership crisis rocking the party. It was gathered that hearing notices had already been issued to parties in the suit following an application by counsel for the plaintiff Luka Haruna seeking an accelerated hearing for the case. According to the letter addressed to the Deputy Chief Registrar of the Federal High Court, the plaintiff legal team had informed the court that the interlocutory appeal filed by Senator Mark had been dismissed by the Supreme Court on April 30. The lawyers, Mr. Robert Emokuru, Lukman Fagbemi, and Luka Haruna urged the court to fix the matter for an accelerated hearing in line with the judgment of the Court of Appeal. Recall that Justice Emeka Nwite had on April 14 adjourned the case indefinitely after Gombe urged the court to await the outcome of proceedings at the Supreme Court.
And so from the Federal High Court in Abuja, it has convicted former Minister of Power, Saleh Maman, on 12 counts amended charge bordering on money laundering filed against him by the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission, EFCC. Despite Maman's absence in court, Justice James Omotosho held that the EFCC approved its case against the former minister beyond a reasonable doubt and consequently found him guilty on all the counts. Maman, who served under former President Muhammadu Buhari between August 2019 and September 2021, was prosecuted over alleged diversion and laundering of funds linked to the Zungeru and Mambila hydroelectric power projects. The anti-graft agency accused him of conspiring with officials and private companies to divert public funds meant for power sector projects. Justice Omotosho said he was satisfied with the evidence led by the prosecution before convicting Maman on all the charges.
The Lagos State government has announced dedicated security tip lines for residents to report security threats and provide credible information through videos, pictures, and text messages. This is contained in a statement on X by the Senior Special Assistant of Media to the Lagos State Governor, Babajide Sanwo-Olu, Mr. Ridwan Adetumobi. The statement notes that the development forms part of efforts to evolve security challenges and strengthen its intelligence gathering efforts, broadening on public access to reporting security concerns in their neighborhoods. To explain that the security tip lines are a messaging-only platform with no call numbers to enable the public to share credible security information through videos, pictures, and text. According to the statement, the platform is structured to encourage the flow of actionable intelligence between the citizens and the government, while maintaining a high standard of confidentiality and professionalism.
Lagos State Governor Mr. Babajide Sanwo-Olu has urged intending pilgrims for the 2026 Hajj exercise to the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia to pray for the peace, unity, and prosperity of Lagos State and Nigeria. On Lagos State's X handle, the governor made the appeal during a one-day seminar organized by the Lagos State Muslim Pilgrims Welfare Board, Ikeja, where preparations for the 2026 Hajj exercise were reviewed. Governor Sanwo-Olu, who was represented by the Commissioner for Home Affairs, Mr. Ibrahim Layode, who also serves as the Amir-ul-Hajj for the state, congratulated the intended pilgrims, describing their selection as a spiritual privilege. He reminded the pilgrims that the Hajj is not a leisure trip, but a spiritual exercise that demands patience, discipline, and devotion.
The Oyo State Primary Healthcare Board, in collaboration with the United Nations Population Fund, through the Center for Comprehensive Promotion of Reproductive Health, organized a one-day capacity building training to strengthen advocacy for the abandonment of female genital mutilation (FGM) across the state. The training held in Oyo Town brought together medical officers of health, educators, and monitoring and evaluation officers from all 33 local government areas of the state. Speaking at the event, the Executive Secretary of the Oyo State Primary Healthcare Board, Dr. Muideen Olatunji, represented by the Director of Special Duties, Mr. Abiodun Akande, reaffirmed the board's commitment to ending FGM in Oyo State. Dr. Olatunji described FGM as a harmful and outdated practice that must be eradicated through sustained advocacy, community engagement, and strengthened healthcare systems.
The Sokoto State Government has confirmed the death of 33 children following a fresh outbreak of cerebrospinal meningitis in parts of the state as health authorities battle a growing number of infections. The State Commissioner for Health, Dr. Farouk Abubakar, disclosed this during an advocacy meeting with district heads organized by the State Primary Healthcare Development Agency. The Commissioner stated that no fewer than 256 suspected cases have been recorded across 8 local government areas since the outbreak resurfaced about a month ago due to delayed treatment and widespread misconceptions that the illness is spiritual rather than a serious medical emergency. Health experts warn that without urgent treatment, the disease can lead to death within hours of cause or cause permanent complications such as hearing loss, brain damage, or paralysis. To curb the spread of the disease, the state government, in partnership with Medicines Sans Frontières as Doctors Without Borders, established isolation centers at the general hospitals in Dogodaji and Tambuwal with separate wards for male and female patients, with no recent deaths recorded since intensified interventions began. Cerebrospinal meningitis is a deadly infection that causes inflammation of the protective membranes covering the brain and spinal cord and spreads more easily during the dry and hot seasons, particularly in overcrowded communities with poor health condition.
This is The World Today, the story that made the headlines. President Tinubu has directed Nigerian missions in South Africa to establish crisis unit. Court has convicted former Palm Minister for money laundering. Still to come, U.S. Secretary of State meets Pope Leo XIV. French President called for reopening of the Hormuz Strait. With these and many more, we'll be right back. Do stay with us.
And I will bring you stories from the foreign scene. The top United States diplomat Marco Rubio has visited the Vatican for talks with Pope Leo XIV against the backdrop of tensions between the White House and the Vatican. The U.S. Secretary of State's visit comes after President Trump's criticism of Leo, the head of the world's 1.4 billion Catholics, over his anti-war stance. Rubio, a devout Catholic, has sought to play down the rift ahead of the private audience, which would be followed by talks with Vatican Secretary of State Pietro Parolin.
French President Emmanuel Macron has called on all parties to lift the blockade of the Strait of Hormuz without delay and conditions after a telephone talk with Iranian President Masoud Pezeshkian. President Macron said on social media platform X that there was need to return to the regime of full freedom of navigation that prevailed before the conflict. He noted that the future multinational escort mission launched by France and Britain will contribute to the goal. President Macron said the repositioning of the aircraft Korea, Charles de Gaulle, is part of the efforts calling on Iran to seize the opportunity.
And Heart of the Matter today is an address in cases of human trafficking as written by Fasilat Lawal of our reportorial unit.
Human trafficking has been identified as a cankerworm that has eaten deep into the fabric of the society, with far-reaching consequences for both victims and society at large. It is a form of modern slavery in which human beings are traded for the purpose of forced labor, slavery, sexual exploitation of workers, domestic helps, and organ harvesting. Human trafficking is a global problem. Every year, thousands of men, women, and children fall into the hands of traffickers within their countries and abroad. According to the United Nations Office on Drugs and Crime, UNODC, almost every country in the world is affected by human trafficking, whether as a country of origin, transit, or destination for victims. Similarly, the United Nations Education, Scientific and Cultural Organization, UNESCO, identified Nigeria as one of the leading African countries in human trafficking, with cross-border and internal trafficking. The magnitude of human trafficking is so prevalent that it has become the second largest source of illegal income after drug trafficking. Recently, operatives of the Nigeria Security and Civil Defense Corps NSCDC Lagos State Command busted a baby factory in Lagos State where 18 pregnant women and 10 children were rescued, while the operators of the facility, Joy Okeke and Raphael Agu, were arrested. Reportedly, the pregnant women, upon delivery, had their babies sold between 500,000 naira and 1.8 million naira. Some of the pregnant women had come to the center with children, and infants were offered for sale to willing buyers. It is imperative to note that a nation confronted with human trafficking cannot make progress and is bound to suffer serious consequences ranging from economic to socio-cultural problems. To tackle this menace, the federal government in 2003 established the National Agency for Prohibition of Trafficking in Persons, NAPTIP, with the mandate to provide a comprehensive legal framework to prohibit human trafficking, protect victims, and facilitate national and international cooperation to fight trafficking. No doubt some of the factors responsible for human trafficking include search for greener pasture, poverty, unemployment, extreme greed for wealth, corruption, poor economic system, and porous borders. It is also pathetic that some parents subject their children to various forms of labor, including trafficking for economic gains. In recent months, the government has taken steps towards curtailing the menace, ranging from rescuing victims who are being trafficked to prosecuting traffickers. Furthermore, NAPTIP should intensify awareness campaigns at schools, religious centers, communities, and parks. The agency can also expand its media outreach to educate the public on the dangers of human trafficking. The zonal offices of NAPTIP need to take the campaign against human trafficking to marketplaces, schools, and religious houses as part of its community sensitization program. Government must also rise up to its responsibilities of making the environment more economically conducive for may not be one.
That script on addressing cases of human trafficking was written by Fasilat Lawal of our reportorial unit and read by Feyishara Owomoyela.
To end the news on the world today from the stable of Radio Nigeria, here again are the day's top stories. President Bola Tinubu has directed Nigerian missions in South Africa to immediately establish a crisis notification unit for imperiled citizens. The Federal High Court in Abuja has convicted former Minister of Power Salim Mamman on 12-count amended charge bordering on money laundering filed against him by the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission. The top United States diplomat Marco Rubio has visited the Vatican for talks with Pope Leo XIV against the backdrop of tensions between the White House and the Vatican. We also told you in the news that French President Emmanuel Macron has called on all parties to lift the blockade of the Strait of Hormuz without delay and conditions after a telephone talk with the Iranian president.
Well, that's the world today for today. Join us tomorrow for a fresh edition of the program. Modupe Toba edited. Rasheedat Makinde also assisted. And on behalf of Christy John Tega. My name is Nida. I say thank you for staying with us. Have a pleasant day from our sister and colleague.
Remy Omolola, do enjoy the rest of the day. Good afternoon.